is just getting more integrated into everything, really. I mean, I can order my essential toilet paper just by talking to this imaginary thing right there. You know what I mean?
Can you order some toilet paper while we're on this podcast?
Alexa.
Is that your normal? Is that your normal tone with her?
Yes, I like to speak to. I like to speak. Alexa, be quiet. I'm talking to my friends. I like to speak to Alexa. Aggression. She's got to earn her place in my home. She's still new. You have to haze a newcomer. Everybody knows that. You don't just let somebody into your crew without a little bit of hazing. I mean, that's just. See,
I'm against the amount of data that Alexa collects against our knowledge. But this is, to me, the biggest problem with the race for data collection has been how secretive the companies have been about it. So, for instance, iPhone used to have you would have to like opt in for dictation, where it would kind of like help your voice into text thing. So you'd have to opt in for that, and I would always opt out because I understood that then have my voice data. And then at some point, and this happens with all of these types of things, they say to themselves, I think most people are fine with it. It's going in the general agreement. And they stopped asking, and now they just listen to you all the time. And it's like, well, we put it in our agreement. And I think all of the big players in the space obviously now understand that data equals power and money. But there's a little bit of a question of where is the next and most valuable type of data. And that's where Biju and I kind of have in our book, Legend of Sumeria, we have kind of predicted that the next humongous data collection race where companies will be able to pitch as even more valuable than voice or text data will be people's genetic data.
So Jay, you and Biju wrote this awesome book, Legend of Sumeria, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And it's interesting because, as you said, there is a prophetic nature to the book. There are things that were predicted with technology. There are things that are kind of prophetic in the medical space. And there are things that are kind of prophetic in the sociological space of what a post-pandemic future kind of looks like. So, I know in your book kind of starts out 6 years from where we are right now. There is obviously a little bit of a difference because prior to the virus that breaks out, that's affecting the population, there was kind of an overall vaccine that was created that got rid of most communicable diseases, correct? Mm-hmm. What was the name of that vaccine in the book?
Well, Tigris was the name of the gene therapy that was had already eliminated a lot of the common infectious disease that we think about, like malaria, HIV, things like that. And in the course of the book, there was so much need for a vaccine to protect everybody due to this newer bioterror threat that the goal was to make Tigris, which was a gene therapy, into a vaccine for everybody.
With the therapy getting administered, every citizen kind of had to get it so that they can be sure as they're moving around that they're safe, correct? So it's not going to function very unlike, the vaccine that's going to be created for COVID. The world that comes out of that in the novel is a world that's not only connected by everybody taking, the therapy or being administered the therapy, but also they're connected in a very tight technological network based upon their genetic data. So, how does that function, and what parallels do you see? I know this is a work of fiction, but what parallels do you see as far as the way it's going to work with everybody getting this drug and what that means for where they're allowed to be and how they are allowed to move through society? What kind of parallels do you see between where you guys went in the book and what is possible in real life?
In Sumeria, we had a form of contact tracing, but genetics was the key. So you see who was around you, and that is rolled up into this larger thing of really genetic oversight called the Seek network that it defines how you might buy certain items, what kind of jobs you have, what kind of relationships that you're in. All of this is based on one's own genetics. So we have this kind of, dramatization of contact tracing. And also we have, again, like a dramatization of how urgent there was a need for a vaccine given, in our story, a bioterror threat that continued to grow. And that led to one company that really owned the rights to the Seq network and people's, genetic information, as well as this really powerful gene therapy to accelerate their, really with a wide open door, the development of this, vaccine and the potential to expose the entire human race to, this vaccine. And that has ramifications in our story because the people who are driving that don't have necessarily, human society's best intentions in mind.
How long, Biju, how long does the process usually take from, the first discovery of the, the formulation that could be viable and the approved FDA, let's go and administer this vaccine to the public?
Yeah, typically years, because what a vaccine's meant to do is prevent like someone from getting an infection. And in order to demonstrate that scientifically, you got to give it to a whole bunch of people and measure to see if it's preventing something that doesn't happen to everyone. It's a small percentage of people that, even if they weren't, given a vaccine, would even get an infection. So it's a numbers game, and because of that, you need to really enroll a lot of people to study before you get an approved vaccine. We're talking like tens of thousands to demonstrate that scientifically. So it typically takes years to even try this in human beings, let alone develop something from scratch. That early R&D process also would typically take a few years, even for a large organization. And all of that timeline is shrunk down right now. There's been a rapid development of lead candidates, not necessarily, they're scientifically credible and viable, but the need to demonstrate, scientifically, data that's meaningful from an effectiveness standpoint, I don't know if that outweighs just, the public response and, regain of confidence by just having some vaccine that's safe, that has a partial, response, if at best. I wonder if, a not significantly effective vaccine would get approved right now, simply because it would at least draw a new line of protection, and therefore allow people to feel a little bit more comfortable going out and doing everyday things.
So yeah, it's really not difficult to see the scenarios that are being played out in the book kind of being played out with the way things are moving right now. It's going to be interesting when certain restaurants won't allow people in their businesses that are not vaccinated. There's a huge anti-vax movement in the country already. So do you think it's possible for gene therapies to be used as treatment for a COVID type disease? And do you think maybe the answer maybe is looking for more of a treatment right now than a vaccine itself?
Are you working on tigers, Biju, personally? Are you working on getting? That's my question.
How close are we, and when can I get some?
We are working on treatments that Scifi, cell therapy company that I founded, has something that we think could benefit people who get that really severe reaction and have those lung complications after COVID. These are the ones that are really at high risk for mechanical ventilation and even death. So we and others, I think there's a group of people. Let's say there's kind of three buckets of people. There's buckets that are trying to develop new tests. That has been a very strange, fragmented process in the United States. There's people that are developing treatments if someone does get a COVID infection, trying to limit the morbidity, mortality. And then the third group is trying to develop the vaccines that are going to prevent anybody from getting the infection in the first place. And so each bucket, each vertical is at different stages. Obviously, there's diagnostic tests available, some of which are FDA approved and good. Others are maybe not as good and are just touted up for different reasons. There's an approved treatment, partially effective, and we don't have a vaccine yet, but I suspect that at some point we'll at least hear about the results of a first generation vaccine in the coming years. So that's sort of the state of the affairs. And treatments I think will always be important. Just like if you get the flu. I mean, I kind of see this personally evolving into like a flu-like, okay, every year we have some, new vaccine trying to reduce flu outbreaks. COVID's more contagious, more deadly, but, not by like orders and orders of magnitude, just kind of, increased, by a few, percentage points. So if we start to, operate like this was part of flu season, I feel like that could be a new norm, that not only includes flu and protections for elderly or young people for flu, but also, the coronavirus now.
So do you see after the vaccine, everything going back to normal here and us being allowed to go to stadiums and
yeah, yes and no. Yeah, and I think Jay obviously has thought about like the societal implications a lot as well. But I think what COVID did, and we've been kind of dancing around this, but it really put a wedge in a lot of existing issues that we're facing in our country and others, and really shined a lot of light on already like major divisions, like people who have healthcare versus people who don't, people who have jobs that are more deemed essential versus non-essential. Even people who practice certain religious faiths versus ones who don't. So I don't know if that will normalize, as it once was, but I think something that clearly, and Jay can expand on this, but like different types of gatherings in concentrated environments, perhaps with poor air ventilation, like restaurants and concerts and things like this. I'm not sure if those will rebound just right back to where they once were. I hope they do. I certainly like that.
So one really interesting thing is people have been talking a lot about their bubble. This is my kind of like COVID quarantine bubble. Some people's bubble is like only their family. Some people, have a bubble of 50 people, and they're like, no, but we're only hanging out with each other. But either way, there's a part of our story that comes from the Seek network, which was developed after a pandemic, which again uses the genetic code of each individual as not just security, but as recommendations. And they would have things called gene pool parties. So you're around, basically you're only invited to this party as if you have similar genetic representation. So like, it's all the green-eyed girls and all the, brown-haired, athletic guys. Like there's all different types of combinations, obviously, but you can see how that technology could be similar to what's already going on, where it's like, oh, I feel comfortable around my own genetic code, so we can all hang out. But let's probably stay away from those other weird genetic codes that get affected by COVID, or maybe like they were related to somebody who died from it. But now, if there's enough data there, you could be like, oh, my genetic code is good. I don't have to really worry, and we can hang out with all the people's genetic codes that don't have to worry about code flu, and the other people, sorry, but we're not hanging out.
In the book, there's one company that controls both, right? The cure and also the system by which people are monitored, traced, and led to their destinies. So, did power of being the ones who created the cure kind of give this company also the power to leverage that into the other business venture, or was two goals aligned, from the start?
As far as that one company is concerned, data collection was paramount in order to create the vaccine. So the head of that company, Naima, was constantly trying to get his hands on genetic data and medical data in order to kind of connect these two worlds of pharmaceuticals and networking and social media. But the major thing I think to take out of regarding COVID is that in history, people have used fear-driven, initiatives or media or propaganda in order to push certain things. So if you have technology ready that you want, whatever the motivation is, if you want it to succeed, if you get people thinking that they might not be able to survive without it, chances are you're going to be able to push that technology through. Fear has worked in the past, so it's just something that general population, just like me and you, should keep an eye on, whether like if we see vaccines being expedited, if we see like different monitoring systems like being expedited without regulation, like, now they can listen to me? Shit, I didn't even know that. Oh wait, now they have my genetic data? Like, why didn't they tell me? I just went to take a crap and now there's a chip inside my butt. Like, is that okay? It's not okay.
Now it's it might sound a little bit plausible. It's sound a little bit out of the realm of something that can really happen. I just want to go over something I found really interesting about the book. And I remember, when I first read it, when I read it years ago, before I read it, before when I was just hearing about it or whatever, the 23andMe's came out, and all of these gene sequencing websites for people to get their genetic code. I thought it was the coolest thing. I wanted to do it. I was like, yeah, I want to know what I am. I want to know if I have any like cousins out there I don't know about. But of course,
American.
Of course, I went to Biju first, and I was like, yo, what do you think about that? And he was like, well, I wouldn't do it. And I was like, why? He's like, you're basically paying somebody to own your genetic code. And I thought about that for a second, and I was like, well, I never really thought about that. And then, I read the book, and right around that time, or maybe last summer, a year after I read it, a big pharma company purchased one of these companies. So it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I called Biju right away. I was like, thank God I didn't do this, because this pharmaceutical company would now own genetic data. And for anybody listening, it's not a huge leap to say this pharmaceutical company that now owns your genetic data can do things with it that maybe you might not be into, or use it for data collection, or projects that you might never even know. So it's an interesting thing. I think one of the most profoundly prophetic parts of the book. It's a legitimate thing that happened in the real world. So Biju, how do you feel about like data collection of genetics, and what a company can do with your code, and what kind of stress it caused an individual to actually know these things?
Some collection of this information is really very useful. It allows people, researchers and scientists to develop what's called like precision medicines. So if someone has, a mutation in this one, protein, we can develop a drug for that, and then we can also develop a test to see if you, have that mutation and therefore would benefit from this drug, and therefore, get even better medicinal effects. So there's clear value to, studying genetics, trying to identify what role genes play in disease. But there is this potential for that information to be used, in ways that consumers hadn't even thought of or weren't even privy to. And right now, no one is, defining that line except for, large companies and perhaps, some government. So I try to stay in the middle ground. I try to just make sure that everyone is aware and, having a voice, because this obviously affects not just companies and governments, but people, privacy groups, there's a lot of different stakeholders, in play here. So we're hoping that continued discussion about this can help define these regulations before a moment like now happens, and there hasn't even been any dialogue about contact tracing. Who talked about that? It just, now it's happening, and the decision was made. I didn't vote on it. I don't know, did you? Did any government approve that? It just seemed like the right thing to do, and yeah, in the here and now, sure. But what does that open us up for? It sets precedent for all types of things, and I don't think that I think that genetic content and that data falls in that same realm, where we have to get ahead and predict what could possibly happen, have that dialogue early on, rather than react and just open up the floodgates for anybody who wants to use this for non-helpful purposes.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the kind of the greatest parts about Sumeria and working with Biju was that things were just making sense when you see that, okay, there's these genetic data collection things like 23andMe, who kind of like, oh yeah, we can tell you a couple fun things. And it was at least known in the sector that they were making money on the back end. So like, for me, I was just like, how are they going to double dip like that? Like, I wasn't thinking as much about the ethics of it. I was just like, those bastards, like they're making you pay to make more money. like at least give us the service for free if you're like going to do some, weird hoaxical thing about like,
give me some royalties in the back end. Like, give me some back.
Yeah.
Everybody who does ancestry.com should get 3% of anything they use their code for.
Yeah, when they sell their genetic database, like 23andMe did to GlaxoSmithKline, they sold their genetic database, I think, for like 400 million, and they get to use it for however many years. Yes, every single one of the people should have gotten something. Like, if it was, 10% of that number sent out to other people.
Plate of cookies.
Yeah,
Send a fruit basket. Send a fruit basket. Nobody sends a fruit basket anymore.
A fruit basket with a card that said, "Thanks for your $100, sucker."
You know what? They got a lot for the $100. Somebody woke up. They realized they were 3/4 Irish when they thought they were 100% Ashkenazi. Little did they know they're only 3% Ashkenazi. Mind blowing. It's hard not to posit that there's some sort of, like, somebody's economically benefiting from things that are going on right now. I mean,
some people got some of that $3 trillion that probably didn't deserve it or weren't going to use it in the right way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, even beyond, the CARES Act and things like that, a few very, large private businessmen are getting incremental
tax reductions.
Incremental tax reductions, but also showing a lot of gains during this. Yeah. Bezos is up a few billion. Zuckerberg's up a bunch of billion. In the book, this company Naima, which ends up controlling not only the cure but the technology to track and trace and control the people, is born of this guy. His name is Damon. He's kind of like evil mastermind, but also a well-respected guy in business circles. We kind of get to see his dark side, but when he goes out there, he's just a businessman. You know what I mean? So Naima as a company, what kind of like companies do you see that emulating in the real world? Maybe if like two companies merge, it would be kind of like a Naima operation. Like, who would you parallel Damon to as a character, and who would you parallel Naima to, as an entity?
With COVID-19, everybody seems to be looking for this miracle cure, and Damon and Naima had the miracle cure, which happened to be a genetically based social network along with a cure-all vaccine. So when that vaccine came out, there was a huge cyber terror attack as well. So people's confidence in the internet and banking and things were also at an all-time low. So they were looking for security way more than they were looking for privacy. And Damon kind of swooped in ready to roll with everything, as if he almost might have designed it. So it's something to look out for.
He swept in as if he had as if he positioned himself in technology and medicine.
Yeah. So there you go. I'll let Biju talk about who he thinks maybe are the comparative of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's one person, that kind of fits that description now. Bill Gates, obviously, is a Microsoft tech giant, and through the Gates Foundation has gotten a lot more influential in medicine and healthcare globally. But I think when we were first coming up with the concept of Sumeria and thinking of Damon's character and Naima, it was the idea of merging a large tech giant and a biotech giant. So, for example, an Amazon with a Pfizer, a Facebook with a Merck, or something along that line. And the head of that organization was meant to be kind of visionary, but also ruthless, just like a Steve Jobs or a Jeff Bezos would be, to really stop at nothing to see their vision of product development. So these are some of the let's say characters that we know of in current events. I think that influenced Damon and Naima.
In the novel, what was the experience of the part of the population that didn't take Tigris because they were concerned about the direction of the future? What's their experience like?
Socially speaking, the stigma around people that did not get the Tigris vaccine or were not a part of this new genetic network, they were very much outcast. And I think a lot of that is a little bit of a tale of caution that, with COVID, if a vaccine comes out, and it totally could start to divide us if it's even more so than we already are, So, the vaccine, Tigris, and this social network that is based on your genetic code ended up, creating subdivisions within the Sikh network, but completely outcast all the non-believers.
Well, I'll just clarify that there was two segments of the population. There was people who were on Sikh and people who were off Sikh. So people who signed up, here's all my genetic information, put me in as part of the network, and as part of that, they would get access to genetic medicines like Tigris. Then there were the people who were off Sikh who didn't want that level of invasion of their privacy, and subsequently also lost their ability to get access to these medicines. So that was the kind of staging in Sumeria of the, let's say, have and have-nots. Jay, you want to talk about the people who were off Sikh and their sort of challenge?
If there are certain types of treatments or vaccines that one company controls, if they're forcing you to join a technology in order to get access to your own health and your family's health, it's going to be hard to stick to your principles. So that's something to think about if this ever does come into the existence, is that, sometimes you cannot stop the progress of a technology, especially if it's based around your own survival, which is a sad thing, but
yeah, it's like in Sumeria, people have given up the ability for their own lifestyle changes to impact their health and well-being, versus in the characters in the book, they just are sort of slaves to what this genetic network tells them that they should do or who they should be with, or so on and so forth. So right now, with companies that sequence your genome, if you get back information that says, yeah, you might be a carrier of something or a risk in something, it sends, some people get afraid. They don't know what to do with that information. And sometimes doctors even don't even know how to counsel these folks. But others just realize, well, okay, this just means I'm a little bit at risk. You know what, if I work out a little bit more, if I eat right, if I don't do, certain types of, activities, then I'll be able to counter this risk because of my own lifestyle, my own decisions. And, that level of free will is effectively just thrown out the window in Sumeria. People just give up and they become lazy, and they just do whatever the Sikh network says is right for them.
Also, they don't really have much of a choice. It comes to a point where it's either, revolution or Fed solution. You know what I mean? Like it's much easier to kind of like go with the herd sometimes than it is to fight a crusade, because, most crusades, especially when going up against companies like Naima, I mean, best of luck to you.
Losing battle. Because I mean, how do you, kind of compete when Naima owns your ability to buy something or to get healthcare or so on and so forth? There is, you sometimes do have to just follow in the herd, because otherwise you get left behind. You can't function, and that's that's our off-Sikh kind of population that is, really underground and struggling.
And even back to like reality, there's lots of people that I think are like revolution and a kind of anti establishment at heart. Like I certainly did not want to get a wife. I certainly didn't want to get an iPhone. that's my next statement is I certainly didn't want to get an. I said I certainly didn't want to get an iPhone, but I have a wife and I have people that were like, yo, you need to get an iPhone, because like just like you said to Biju when he was like, I can't FaceTime. Like you get enough social pressure and
especially now, something I've learned is that, if you start a group text with a bunch of people and it's green, you need to find the green person and get them out. Honestly, the dopamine hit that you get from a haha, priceless.
The amount of things that like we have given up before the dopamine response of a like or a haha is really it's spectacular. It's something that I can't really wrap my head around.
But the high is so good though.
This is a great kind of slippery slope that we're all sliding down right now, and you could say no more easily to an iPhone or to Instagram or to getting likes or something than you can to a vaccine that can save your life. So like we're already on the slope down, but if government and or like humongous companies start to integrate the two where technology is needed in order to survive, then it's just something to keep an eye out, because it can happen. It probably will happen. And we as a whole species, we need to kind of, come together and try to either regulate it or just do something before it actually happens. That's hopefully our book can help just a little bit in terms of people understanding what might happen and maybe taking some steps to either personally protect themselves or, try to like not opt into things if it's possible. If they don't agree with it. If you agree with it, it's all good.
I think maybe, just to bring it all together, I think, the public really needs to, we as a people need to open our eyes and kind of, pay attention to what's happening, what deals are being made, what restrictions are being lifted. What I'm gleaning right now is that the future, the only way that we're going to survive in a way that's beneficial to all of us is it's got to be a bipartisan future. All these divisions and, all these things that are driving us apart, whether it's, people who are in total fear of the virus, people who, have different data and have a different feeling about the virus. I mean, we're losing kind of an empathetical mutual respect that whatever you feel, it's the Sheryl Crow philosophy, like if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad. And you shouldn't really, judge somebody for what they believe or force your beliefs on people. Everybody's entitled to believe what they believe, but we need to, go above that to come together, because there's no way that we're going to be able to stop what's coming, with the implications of what's coming with all of this automatic opt-in, the contact tracing, the widespread vaccines, your social life and the way you move through the world being affected by whether or not you take a vaccine or not. There's no way that we're going to be able to even have a say if we're too busy yelling at each other.
We might have to wrap, folks. I got to jump to another meeting, but we'll.
All right, so we've been here with Jay Webb and Dr. Biju Parekkaden. The book is called The Legend of Sumeria. My name is Ryan Liszak. Pleasure talking to you, gentlemen. And
you too, man.
Thank you.